Hi there, Richard Faulkner here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles. So today is part 2 of our look at Judas Priest. In part 1 we had a look at their debut album right through to British Steel, and today we're going to carry on right up until their most recent album in 2018, I think that was. So, Judas Priest 1980, they'd got Dave Holland in on drums, a lot heavier than their earlier output, as I said. And the next few albums would really take them to the top, especially in America. And as you know, if you want to make it in the rock world, that's the country you have to make it in. They had a lot of touring. The albums became a lot more polished. They had a producer, the same producer for quite a few albums by the name of Tom Allom. He did a really good job with the albums. And in fact, he came back for their most recent album as well. So let's have a quick look at the albums and then I'll just chat a bit about them. So after British Steel, 1981, was an album called Point of Entry. Slightly more commercial sounding, and not as heavy as British Steel, but I've always enjoyed this album. I think this has got a lot going for it. It came with 2 different covers. I think the American cover was different to this one. It had sort of a road going off into the distance. So here you had Rob Halford, lead vocals, Glenn Tipton on lead guitars, KK Downing lead guitars, Ian Hill on bass guitar, and Dave Holland on drums. And this lineup would be around for quite a few albums. Let's see if there's anything I can... This is a Sony remaster. They did a really good job with these. With a shot of KK and Glenn Tipton, the twin guitar attack. So inside you've just got the lyrics. And some more lyrics. Not much else to show you really. There's a small photograph of the guys there in their leather and studs, which of course by this stage was the usual look for Judas Priest. They've left the flowing robes and things behind in the 70s. So this has got 2 bonus tracks, Thunder Road and Desert Plains, that great track from this album live. Starts out with Heading Out to the Highway, which is a really cool rocking track, some nice melodies. There's a lot of melody in this album, a little bit more than previously. And they always wrote good songs, these guys. You know, it might be heavy, but I've always said if you have a strong song, that's it. Job done. Don't Go, and my favorite on here, Hot Rockin', which has got a really mean riff from KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. Turning Circles, Desert Plains, that was the other big hit off this album. Solar Angels, also with a really slow, ponderous riff to it. You Say Yes, bit of a throwaway track. All the Way, Troubleshooter, and On the Run. I think the first 6 or 7 tracks on here are really good, and then after a while they run out a bit of steam. But as I said, I really enjoy this album. I played quite a lot. I played it last night again, just to refresh the old memory. Good album. Then we move on to 1982, and probably their biggest selling album to date, I would imagine. And I'm talking about Screaming for Vengeance. There's a really cool, I think, 30th anniversary version of this, which comes with a DVD, accompanying DVD of their appearance at the US Festival in the States in 1983, which is amazing. Really, those guys are firing on all cylinders there. Rob Halford especially singing Up a Storm. So there's not a bad track on here really. I think everything, there were such big hits off here. The Hellion, which then segues into Electric Eye. It's a really nice sort of co-joined song there, which kicks off the album. Riding on the Wind, Bloodstone, that was another big hit. Take These Chains, a bit more slower tempo. Pain and Pleasure, Screaming for Vengeance, the title track, just flies. I mean, it's a really fast-paced track, that. You've Got Another Thing Coming, which was probably the big radio-friendly hit off here. I'm not crazy about it. It's okay. It's a kind of a sing-along thing, you know, especially done for the crowds. And when they did it live, of course, that's when everybody joined in. Fever and Devil's Child. Excellent album. I really have to get that deluxe version just to... you know, get the sound, which is, as I said, Sony have done a really good thing. Although this normal version is not too bad. So there we go, Screaming for Vengeance. Massive tour with this album. They would headline all over the place. Everybody wanted to support them at that time. Yeah, they were riding the crest of a wave with this album. So after that, get back to the vinyl. Defenders of the Faith from 1984. Not as strong as Screaming for Vengeance, but still very heavy. You can see they're getting progressively heavier here. Free Wheel Burning, another fast-paced track. Jawbreaker, Rock Hard, Ride Free. The Sentinel, Love Bites, another really good track. Some interesting lyrics from Rob Halford. He always comes up with these slightly dodgy lyrics, if you like, but read into them what you will. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Night Comes Down, Heavy Duty, and Defenders of the Faith. I haven't reached for this too often, but it's not a bad album, you know, of their later stuff. See if there's anything. This is a local release, so there's not much to show you except the record. There we go. I just love that cover. Done by the same guy who did the Screaming for Vengeance cover. You can see the similarities in the style. I think they would use him for the next one as well. So this was quite a heavy album. And still produced by Tom Allom, engineered by Mark Dodson. Yeah, another big tour with us. Stage sets, massive stage sets. I think they had a stage set where they took this Metallion, is what it was called, as a kind of a backdrop for Rob Halford to hang around. Cool stuff. When tours were still, where money was no object. You know, when you're starting to have an upsurge in your career, suddenly the cash is there and you can splash it on the stage show and what have you, and the lighting. Next album we're going to talk about is one which I struggled with. I really don't listen to this at all. This is the time when all the bands, metal bands, were trying different things, like electronic drums and synth guitars. Metal band synth guitars doesn't work for me. I know Maiden did it at the same time when they did Somewhere in Time. And they, produced by Tom Allom again, and Judas Priest decided to do the same thing with Turbo. Also some really cheesy music videos around this time. You know, MTV was just happening. So Priest had a couple of videos there which were, yeah, I don't think too much time was spent on the videos. So Turbo Lover was the big hit off here, which is okay, very commercial. Locked In, Private Property, Parental Guidance. Out in the Cold wasn't a bad track on side 2 of the vinyl. Wild Nights, Hot and Crazy Days, Hot for Love, and Reckless. As I say, it doesn't grab me, you know, that tinny drum sound and the synth guitars. It's a metal band. You want something with a bit of heft and a bit of in your face. This was a bit of a throwaway for me. Some people like it. I don't much care for it. So that was Turbo from Judas Priest with the interesting cover there. So then for the Turbo tour, for that tour they released an album, Priest Live. Previously they'd released Unleashed in the East, but that was in the 70s with Les Binks on drums. So this is with Dave Holland and the rest of the crew. Priest Live. Now I ask you with tears in my eyes, you've got so much money, you're making a killing, touring the world and all the rest of it, and all you can come up for a cover is that. Why not have a shot of the guys, live shot of the guys? They do, but they stick it at the back, small pictures. This cover was just pretty boring for me, nothing much happening there. Priest Live, sort of a gold beigey colour. See if there's anything in the inside. There's a really great shot. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You see the guys there live. You can see they were going all out with a live stage show. Big drum kits, all the rest. Lots of razzmatazz. So on here you had Out in the Cold, which was obviously from Turbo. Heading Out to the Highway, Metal Gods. Great version on here. Although I think the production on this is a bit tinny. It could have been a little better. Breaking the Law, Love Bites, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, The Sentinel. So there's quite a few hits on your Turbo Lovers on here. Living After Midnight. So this came out in 87, produced by Tom Allom again. Yeah, a good live album, but yeah, they could have done more with the packaging, etc. Just my little bugbear. Then, after that, came out an album which would be the last one to feature Dave Holland, the drummer, who would leave the band under a bit of a cloud And of course, later on, he went to jail for all sorts of nonsense, and unfortunately, since passed on. Not a great album either. You know, you look at that cover, Ram It Down, and you're thinking, yes, Priest are back. This is going to be a really heavy, full-on good album with lots of catchy hooks and all the rest of it. And you know, when bands start doing covers, then you got to worry. They do a terrible version of Johnny Be Good. I mean, Johnny Be Good is a classic track, classic rock and roll track, but they just killed it on you. I don't know what they did to it, but it sounded terrible. Also with a cheesy video to go with it. I can't think of anything else that was great on you. Blood Red Skies was okay. Ram It Down. But the rest is forgettable. Let's see if there's anything I can show you inside. No, it's just the lyrics. So yeah, this would be the last one to feature Dave Holland. And I don't know, the sound also on here wasn't that great. I mean, you'd think if you have the same producer for X amount of albums, you would know what the band like to sound like. But they like to tinker with stuff, and to me that doesn't always work. Then we move on to an album. They had to have a comeback. A strong comeback album after that, because that one did terribly, no sales, and you could see they were a little bit worried. So what they did was they got a new drummer in, an American, first non-British guy in the band, I think, Scott Travis, who was previously with a band called Racer X, really powerhouse drummer, lots of triplets, double bass drums, all the rest of it, and they came out with an extremely heavy album, Painkiller, that really cool cover there. This album just shunts the whole way through. Painkiller, the title track, is just brutal. Really, really fast metal track. Stick that on, you stick it to number 10, and your neighborhood will just disperse. And this has got a couple of bonus tracks. This is another one of those Sony releases. Hell Patrol, also really good. All Guns Blazing, another brutal fast track. A lot of fast-paced stuff on here. Great lead breaks from both KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. Seemed like they rediscovered their mojo with this album. Metal Meltdown, A Touch of Evil. That's also a slower track, but just really, really cool stuff. Let's see if there's anything I can show you inside here. There's lyrics, shots of the guys. Some of the hairdos from these days were a bit sort of perm to the max and all the rest of it, but I suppose that was the thing back then. There's another shot of the guys sitting there. All the lyrics inside as well. As I said, Sony production, really good on these remasters. I have to commend them for that. And it was nice to get the bonus tracks on here. Bonus tracks on here is Living Bad Dreams and Leather Rebel. I don't think those had been released before. Excellent album. Really good comeback for Priest. So then, there are a few albums that I don't have. What happened then was Rob Halford left the band. Big news, losing an iconic lead singer like Rob Halford. He went on to form a band called Fight, and he also did a couple of solo albums, Rob Halford Band. There was a lot of bad blood. Apparently, he got told that he was out of the band via like an SMS or an email or something. Very impersonal. He took it quite personally. Excuse me. But nevertheless, he was gone. So they needed to replace him. So they got a guy by the name of Tim Ripper Owens, who was previously with a band called Iced Earth. They were sort of a power metal, thrash metal band. He had the vocal range to do the Rob Halford stuff. Obviously, you needed somebody who could hit those high notes for all those iconic songs. But for me, he didn't have the stage presence. He wasn't a Rob Halford. That was Rob Halford needs Priest and Priest needs Rob Halford kind of thing. There were 2 albums released with that lineup, with Tim Ripper Owens, Jugulator from 1997 and Demolition from 2001. I don't have them. I have no desire to get them. I've heard them. It does nothing for me. To me, it's derivative heavy metal. There's nothing that says this is Judas Priest. It could have been any metal band from the time. There were some nice lead breaks and what have you, but as I say, it didn't work for me. I think there was also a live album around that time from that with that lineup. I think that was, there was, yes, 98 Live Meltdown. I think that was with Ripper Owens. So those were the two that they did with him. And yeah, I think they lost quite a few fans when that happened. And everybody was saying, Rob Halford must come back, Rob Halford. Anyway, his career wasn't doing too badly. But eventually he did come back. And he came back for an album called Angel of Retribution. Also a really cool cover. And this came out in 2004. A really good return to form. Judas Rising, great track. Deal with the Devil, Revolution, Worth Fighting For, Demonizer, Wheels of Fire, Hell Rider, Eulogy, and Loch Ness. Loch Ness is the only track on here which for me doesn't work. It's almost like a proggy kind of song. Just too long. You know, if they'd left that track off and kept it maybe one or two songs earlier, it would have been a great album. Sometimes these guys, you know, it's just too long. And I think that track in particular. See if there's anything I can show you from inside. There's just lyrics. Not much as far as band pictures go. But yeah, this was a good return to form. So you had Scott Travis on drums, Ian Hill on bass, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, usual, and Rob Halford back on vocals. 2004. Angel of Retribution. Check it out. If you haven't heard this yet, it's well worth a listen. So then we went, and I just want to get my things in order here. That was in 2008. Yes, then they came out with an album called Nostradamus. So Judas Priest decided in all their, you know, wisdom to release a concept album about Nostradamus. And trust me, I've heard one or two tracks and that was enough for me. The rest is just, it's terrible. Apparently it was a KK Downing thing. He wanted to get this release and he insisted. Did nothing for the band as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they even did the whole album live. And I think most of the audience were bored to tears. You know, bring out the hits, don't play this stuff. So that was a bit of a misstep. And then in 2014, they come out with another great album, Redeemer of Souls, the really cool cover. So after the misstep of Nostradamus, they come back with this album, and it's another classic Priest album. Dragonaut, brilliant song, Redeemer of Souls, Halls of Valhalla, Rob Halford singing up a storm, Sword of Damocles, March of the Damned, Down in Flames, Hell and Back. Yeah, this is a really great album. Good production as well. Released on Sony. And this is one of the bonus discs. And you've got a couple of tracks on here. Snakebite, Tears of Blood, Creatures, Bring It On, and Never Forget. Those are all bonus tracks. Let me just see if there's anything I can show you. There's got the lyrics, and you've got some really cool pictures inside. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a really cool picture of the band here somewhere. Well, you can't really see their faces there. They're sort of standing in the shadows. And I think there is another one somewhere here. There we go. Judas Priest in all their glory. The difference being here, in fact, I forgot to, yes. So, KK Downing leaves the band. And this is before this album. He said he's going to go and open a golf course and leave the music scene and what have you. So they bring in a guy by the name of Richie Faulkner on guitar. Almost a lookalike, KK Downing lookalike, blonde hair, same length, all the rest of it. Almost plays the same guitars, I think, also plays a Flying V. Able guitarist. I mean, he's done really well with Priest, I must say. But it was almost like you were cloning KK Downing. Anyway, he left under a bit of a cloud as well, KK Downing. So I think this would be the first one to feature Richie Faulkner. Got brain freeze there. I'm not sure if he's on Nostradamus. I don't think so. I think, no, that was a KK Downing album. So yeah, so that's Richie Faulkner joining the band. So there have been numerous lineup changes over the years. I think for the most part they've worked, especially in the early days with all the drummers chopping and changing. But then I think you're still trying to find your feet and find your way. But he's been the most recent addition to the band, Richie Faulkner, as well as, I tell a lie, the most recent album called Firepower in 2018, which I don't have to show you. Also, really strong album, lots of good metal on there. Andy Sneap on guitar, because sadly Glenn Tipton has got Parkinson's, so he's pretty much unable to even play the guitar. I know he has still written songs. I mean, he wrote quite a few songs for Firepower, and he still has a lot to do with the band, but it's nothing live, unfortunately. I think on the last tour, he did come on a few concerts to a few songs, and then he had to get off again. Really sad to see. I mean, you can see the guy was struggling. But yeah, that's life. You know, Parkinson's is not something which is just going to go away. That's only going to get steadily worse. And if you think he was one of the two of that twin guitar attack, Andy Sneap had some big shoes to fill. But I think he did pretty well on tour and on the album. He also produced. He's one of the producers on the album. He does production work. That's his sort of day job. And Judas Priest is like his side thing. So yeah, Firepower I don't have. The only other CD I want to show you is a very early, if you can get hold of it, it gives you a nice overview of Priest, obviously not right up to date. It's a double disc called Metalworks, 73 to 83. There we go. So yeah, it's missing quite a few albums, but it's really cool if you want to listen to the early hits and just have a nice compilation album. They released a number of DVDs that Live in London from 2001. Battle Cry from 2016, Live in London. And the one that I have, Live Vengeance, which is a really cool, when they were at their peak after Screaming for Vengeance tour. There we go. And there's the guys at the back. I don't think there's much else to show you. Oh, it's just a live shot there. Great concert, firing on all cylinders. I didn't know at the time, but around the time of this concert in the 80s, Rob Halford was really struggling with booze and drugs and what have you. I didn't think he was a druggie. You know, he comes across as such a together guy on stage, but apparently he was, he said a lot of the times when he was doing the concerts, he was as high as the kite. And it sort of explains a lot of what he does in this concert. But you need to see it to see what I'm talking about. So that's that one, which is really cool. Anything else I can tell you about? There have been some recent books by guys, you know, Tell All and My Side of the Story and His Side of the Story. KK Downing released one called Heavy Duty. I think that was a couple of years ago. I haven't read that yet. I need to get that. You know, he has a go at quite a few of the other guys in the band, as the Oaks do, you know. And the more recent one is by Rob Halford called Confess. And a lot of that has to do with his sexuality, coming out as being gay. You know, in a metal band, that's not easy. Metal is very macho, and if you're a gay, it's it's you know, not always accepted by people. But he's managed to, you know, handle that whole situation pretty well, and he gives the whole story in the book. So I do need to get hold of that as well, just to give it a read. So there we go. I just want to show you a couple of books that I have. I don't think these are in print anymore. These are probably long out of print, but really cool books. Steve Getz, Heavy Duty, Judas Priest. There we go. And this was up to Defenders of the Faith. I think they all sorts of cool photographs inside of the guys. There's KK Downing. Gives you a bio on each guy in the band. There's a nice shot of Ian Hill, the bassist, and Glenn Tipton. So there's that one. And then there was a Japanese series called Heavy Metal Photo Book. And they had one for Judas Priest. And this is just photographs. It's got some really cool early stuff. Rob Halford there when he still had hair. Didn't have as many tattoos. Very early pictures of Glenn Tipton there. Some really great shots in here. Some early live stuff as well. So yeah, if you can still find this book, it's worth checking out. I think these are both long out of print. So there we go. Judas Priest. If you haven't got any of their stuff, why not? You need to. One of the most iconic metal bands out there. Still going today. As I said, numerous lineup changes. But I think they needed Rob Halford back in the band. And since he's been back, they've gone from strength to strength. You know, they're all getting on. I think Rob's, if not 70, he's close to 70. He slowed down quite a bit. Doesn't run around on stage anymore. But he's still got the voice. He just never ceases to amaze me. You know, you can still hit those high notes at that age. You're doing something right. So there we go, guys. Please, if you like this video, Subscribe down below. Give us a thumbs up. That'll be great. Take care of yourselves. It's pretty crazy out there. We're busy battling another wave of COVID over here. But yeah, like I've said before, if all else fails, just stick on some music and things will start to look a bit better. I'll catch you guys soon for a bit more rock. I'm not too sure what I'm doing next, but regardless, it'll be good. I think we might have a look at Jeff Beck. Don't think I've done him before. But anyway, take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!